Yeah, there we go. That's live stream is started, so I'll start admitting people in. There we go. There we go. Thank you guys for joining. There's some people still connecting. We'll just wait a couple of more minutes to see if anyone else wants to join. Once again, just a reminder that the session is being recorded and live streamed. So if you prefer to keep your cameras yourself muted, and if you want to change your name, please go ahead. If you have any questions or anything, you can pop them in a chat, or you can raise your hand through going into the reactions. And we'll start in a couple of minutes.
Hi guys, it's weird not seeing faces, but I'm assuming you can see mine. Sorry about that. Welcome to the session.
There we go. Oh, there's more people in the waiting room.
Yeah, welcome to the Midlands Regional Conference, guys. If anyone does want to put their cameras on, this is being streamed, so you will be seen. But you're welcome to put a camera on if you want to make Rebecca feel a little bit more like she has a real life audience.
Should I allow them to start video then, just in case anyone wants?
Yeah, if they want to. There's no pressure if they prefer to stay off, but more than welcome to.
So long as mics are off, I think we're all good.
Yeah.
Also, Ims Taylor, your picture is absolutely brilliant.
Giving me life right now.
Just a reminder for people who are coming in now, this is being recorded and live streamed. If you want to put your camera on, you can, but it's just, FYI, we are live streaming this. Cool. Got lots of people coming in. That's good. If you have any questions throughout the session, you're okay to pop your hand any minute. Since this is going to be more of a conversation, we can answer questions throughout. If you prefer, you can also just save them to the end. That's also fine. Just wait a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose we can start now, and then if anyone else joins, they can just pick up wherever we are. So first, hi, welcome everyone. This is Rebecca. She's going to be talking about a little bit about PR, journalism, communications, all that kind of stuff. So would you like to introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Rebecca. You'll start to pick up from my accent when I continue to talk that I am from Newcastle originally, but now based in Leicester. I am a senior PR account manager at Fraser Urquhart Media, which is a Midlands PR and publishing agency. There's a small team of us, there's 5 in total, and we manage PR for clients ranging from a charity organisation right the way through to an aesthetics company. We're dealing with, at the moment, 2 former Olympic athletes that are launching a new fitness programme, restaurants, which are obviously a little bit quieter at the moment due to the current situation, but there's a real variety. I mentioned as well there's a publishing element. We also publish publish 69 magazine, Deluxe magazine, and we also write and publish the Birmingham Law Society magazine. Obviously, again, due to the current situation, 69 magazine and Deluxe magazine are currently on pause at the moment, because they were, for those that perhaps don't know, they were a quarterly publication that were distributed throughout bars, restaurants, hairdressers, obviously a lot of places that are closed or haven't been able to put magazines in place. So all our focus now is on the PR side of things for the foreseeable, until we can fathom out a way of getting the publications back. But in the meantime, we're doing a weekly newsletter that's kind of an e-magazine. So that's started off as just a bit of joy in the midst of lockdown, but now has kind of developed into our platform really from the publishing side of things, and building it more into an e-zine until we're ready to kind of go back out into the world as a published magazine again.
Sounds good. So how did your career in journalism start? Was it at university? Was it after university?
So I started, I've always wanted to write in some way, shape or form. I always thought from a journalism perspective, my preference would be features, magazines. I had piles and piles of magazines. I used to just collect them when I was younger. I used to love getting all the different ones. I'd spend all of my pocket money on all of the magazines. It used to drive my mum mad because I used to have piles of them all over my room. I did some work on my college magazine. I really struggled with finding the right degree when I went to university. My initial thought was, should I do journalism? But then I was worried that would kind of put me on a very, very sort of set path. So I looked at English, and again, I struggled a little bit with finding the right course for me, because I didn't want to just do language. I didn't want to just do literature, and came across a course at Sheffield Hallam University that covered language, literature and creative writing, and also gave you the opportunity in your second and third year to do journalism and PR modules, which is what I did. So it gave me the chance to try a bit of everything really, and get a degree that I knew I could explore various different avenues with. I then, when I finished university, I got a job, just some temping work, but then got a job at a local newspaper up in Newcastle. So I was actually the editorial assistant. So that meant I kind of helped with everything. I was sat right on the news desk. I had the news editor, the picture editor, the features editor, the deputy news editor. They were all sat on our little bank of desks. So you can imagine, or you maybe can't, but it was the good old days. It's making me sound really old now, but a lot of the regional publications now, there's been masses and masses of changes, which I'm sure you're all aware of. Journalists now have got to be a jack of all trades, whereas previously there was specific roles and teams under the photographers, the sports desk, all that sort of thing. So it was a real sort of hub of activity and humour, and I used to get the make taken out of me, something rotten, but it doesn't half build yourself up. So I actually was given the opportunity, really fortunately, by my boss, to once a fortnight do the writing for the fashion and features pages. So I was able to do my own photo shoots. So I was organising all sorts of different liaising with different brands. I was really lucky that I had a boss who was sort of nurturing what I really wanted to do. But it also taught me that I didn't want to go down the route of doing the NCTJ course, because it was actually the thought of doing the more hard-hitting journalism, the door knocks, the reporting on deaths and court cases and things that I couldn't get my head around doing. I'm a bit of a heart on my sleeve kind of person, and I would have just been crying with the people that had lost someone, or I just wouldn't have been cut out for that kind of hard-hitting journalism. So yeah, it was a real learning experience, and it gave me a sort of a real insight into it without being in the thick of it and doing all the training and things, because they actually had the NCTJ course. It was a hub up in Newcastle. That was where one of the main courses took place, and we actually used to have the printing presses in the office as well. So someone could actually legitimately say, stop the presses, which was amazing. It only ever happened once when I was there, but it was kind of quite an exciting moment. So yes, that's how it sort of started my career.
That's interesting. And how did you go from then working in that area of journalism into PR specifically? Because you worked with quite a lot of brands and some PR agencies. How did you make that transition?
So it was actually a bit of a sliding doors moment. So I had been offered a placement in London to work on In Style magazine, which I don't think actually still exists in hard copy, but there's definitely still a presence online. So I thought my only way into the route of journalism that I wanted to do, so the fashion magazines and publications, needed to be going down to London. So I had that lined up. I'd actually also had my first interview at Next down here in the Midlands, their head office, for an assistant press officer. I got down to the last two and was told that I hadn't got the job. But then a few weeks after that, saw that it had been re-advertised again. So went back, was re-interviewed. They really put me through my paces. I had to prepare a presentation. I had to write a press release. And I literally spent hours and hours doing everything. They asked me to look at the 10 key trends of the season and how it was reflected within Next. So I made 10 little mini mood boards and kind of really spent hours cutting and sticking, and that's where all the magazines that I'd hoarded over the years came in handy, and basically spent ages doing that, and actually found out down the line, spoiler alert, I got the job at this point, but my director had kept those mood boards, which was a real, I mean, she was really old school, kind of very strict, very into her fashion. Her designers had worked her way up from being the CEO's PA to the director of marketing. So she was a really tough cookie to impress. So when I found out she'd actually kept them, that was quite a good moment for me. So that I actually did find out I got the job at Next. So decided with my sensible hat on that it would give me career progression, security, because obviously going down to London would have meant it wouldn't have been paid. It might have opened some doors, but it would have been a lot of a tougher experience. So that's how I ended up getting into the PR side of things, was through Next, and basically smashing out the interview requests and the kind of the working really hard and doing the best I could at proving I was capable of doing the job.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think it's quite complicated. I'm having sort of the same problem because all the jobs seem to be in London. So I think it was quite lucky to get that job here in the Midlands.
Very lucky. There's actually quite a lot more brands here than you realise. I think when you first start looking, there's a lot of brands, but unfortunately, this will be something that you're probably sick of hearing, but the time at the minute, especially for retailers, is so tough. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go down to London. I've found that there's opportunities in a lot more places than you think when they're in a position to sort of come up. It's just patience. It's really hard, and I've been very, very lucky. Don't get me wrong, I've worked really hard as well, but there's a lot of instances where it's been right place, right time. And like I say, there's that sliding doors moment of sometimes knowing which path is the best to take, but it's just having that faith that something will come. You keep working hard and just keep on the lookout, and you never know what's around the corner.
Yeah. And how is it, the whole experience working in PR for these really big brands for you? Like, what kind of things were you doing? What did you learn?
I think it's actually, I was making some notes because obviously you very kindly shared the questions, and I I've literally written like a good couple of pages of memories and of things that I've actually done and experienced, and it's made me realize how lucky I am and how many experiences I've actually had. And next for me was the big life-changing move, because I'd kind of gone away to uni, come back home, and then moved away again. I was there for almost 8 years, and learned ever such a lot. It's very different working for a big retailer, as I'm sure you can probably imagine. There's many different layers to get through, whereas for example, the business I'm in at the minute, there's 5 of us, the decision makers, Kevin and John, the business owners, who are my sort of bosses. So there's a big difference there. There's so many different departments and different roles that you were sort of wading through at Next to get to the right person. But their head office is huge, and there'd be clothes everywhere, there'd be home samples everywhere. They had shops within the head office, so they had mock shops where they would mock up all of the different new season products and layouts. My role was predominantly based in regional PR, and then we picked up the international side of things. So I was able to travel all over the UK, Ireland, and then eventually across to Prague. I went to Sydney twice, and to Moscow. So we had PR agencies based out there, which was just unreal. Like, I literally had a pinch me moment when I arrived in Sydney for the first time. It was like one of the most amazing, and it's a place I never ever thought I would get to go. And it was, yeah, and similarly with Russia, it's not a place that's ever been on my places I'd like to visit, but I got to see Red Square and experience things that I never thought I would. So I was very lucky, and I was there at the time where Next were the clothing and homeware supplier for the Olympics and Paralympics. So I was quite heavily involved in that. Got to go to the Olympic Park before it had finished. Got to walk by the swimming pool before it was filled. Did a photo shoot, not me, obviously, with some of the volunteers on the roof of the swimming pool. We had a group of Olympic and Paralympic athletes that were kind of Team Next. One of them was a Paralympian who was an who did the equestrian. Is that the right word? Equestrian? Show jumping, that kind of thing. And there's probably someone here who knows what the right way of saying it is, so apologies. But we literally had a photo shoot with him, and he had his horse with him. So it was kind of those sorts of pinch me moments. After a couple of them won medals at the Olympics, we did a photo shoot with OK Magazine. And I got to hold and wear one of the medals. They were massive and so heavy. They were huge. I've worked, so that for me was just insane. So many different opportunities, events, all sorts of things. And like I say, when I was going through my notes, I was sort of, all these different moments kind of sprung back into my mind. And then when I worked for the PR agency up in Newcastle, which is where I went after I finished at Next, we had clients like Dr. Martens, Goldsmiths, a big holiday park company called Park Dean Resorts, and Flymo. So the difference there was, obviously, when you're in-house, you are living and breathing the brand. It's only that brand that you need to kind of think about, know about. Whereas when you're in an agency, you've got to learn the inner workings of all the different brands that you're working with, who signs things off, who makes the decisions, what their brand guidelines are, what their products are. So you can imagine I was learning all about different holiday parks and offers all across the UK. I was then also equally learning about diamonds and watches, and then lawnmowers and hedge trimmers and shoes and boots. And it was fascinating to learn all about that, but it was very different. Your brain was constantly in overdrive because you were having to remember and flip between the different brands all at different times. Whereas when you're in-house, it's a bit more easy to kind of learn and soak it all in. And then after I'd done the agency, I went back to in-house and worked for Holland & Barrett. And that was different again because they had an agency, a PR agency that I worked closely alongside. So I was managing that agency. So when I came in, I remember them saying how grateful they were that I knew what agency was like. 'Cause it's not very often you get someone who's done both in the PR industry. You tend to be either agency or in-house. It's not very often you kind of flip between the two, which I've done. And Holland & Barrett was going through a lot of big changes internally, so that was quite challenging because there was a lot of changes on the board and dealing with different personalities, shall we say, to try and be sort of tactful. There was a lot of people going through a lot of stuff, and us being in the midst of it was quite tricky sometimes. But I had an amazing boss when I first started. She was just one of the best women I've ever worked for. She knew what she was doing, what she wanted. She was straight talking, but really kind, if that makes sense. And I learned a lot from her as well. And it was nice to be surrounded by powerful women in that sense. There was a couple of women that came in on the board that were, one of which interviewed me, that was quite intimidating to start with. But actually, when I left, she gave me the most lovely message on LinkedIn after I'd left. And I helped her out quite a lot. I was dealing a lot with the very senior team, which for me was quite nerve-wracking, because as much as you know that everyone is a human being, when you're dealing with people of that seniority, you want to be respectful, but also you need to kind of tell them they need to do something, and it's quite difficult to manage that at times. But I did it, and it was good. So yeah, there's a lot of differences, but it's taught me a heck of a lot, really a lot.
That sounds like you had like an amazing journey, and it's like you just said, I think the things you learn throughout that, even if it's not exactly what you want to be doing for the rest of your life, it's very valuable, and the people you meet as well and what they teach you. Yeah, so speaking around that, there might be some students who are interested in PR. What kind of skills do you need to go into that industry? So, because many of them might still have time to work on those skills. So asking you, what kind of things do you think they should have to go into PR?
Well, firstly, I want to say that it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what age you are. I'm still learning. I'm like 13 years in, and there's still things that are changing and evolving, and things that I didn't necessarily know how to do. I'm going to sound like such a grandma here, but social media for me is a big, I use it. I know how to use the basics, but from a business perspective and a client perspective, that's something that I'm building my skill set on a lot more now. The advantage that you guys will have is that you've grown up and experienced and used it a lot more than I have. I'm not going to give my age away, but internet didn't really exist when I was at school. It was kind of a dial-up computer and all that sort of stuff. So it definitely, there's always something that you can learn. I definitely would say that writing is a good skill to have, being good with words, but recognizing being good with words and knowing how to write is one thing, but writing a press release is a different beast almost. And what I've found as well is that each agency and in-house environment have a slightly different way of writing the releases. But I always go with leaning on the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why. Get those into your first sentence, capture them with a really good headline. And often you'll find one of the upsides and downsides of PR is that you'll write these press releases, you'll get them signed off. There'll sometimes be blood, sweat, and tears that go into them. And the journalists just pick them up, dump them in, and put their byline on them. And you just kind of think, well, that's actually really flattering if they haven't changed anything. But it's almost, you kind of like a ghostwriter in the background sometimes. I would say that it's being adaptable as well, because I touched on earlier the variety of different clients that I've dealt with, particularly if you go into agency PR. You've got to be kind of able to flip between the 2, 3, 4, or 5 clients that you've got, and kind of instantly know the tone of voice, or you kind of learn what they like, what they don't like, their reference points, their their nuances as a brand. Like I said, when you were in-house, you knew them back to front, inside out, whereas when you're in an agency, you're learning, consistently learning. I would say resilience is very key, again, particularly in agency environments. I'm not going to use FU Media as an example for this, as in the sense of the team there, it's one of the best environments I've ever worked in. We are a small but mighty team, and we all pitch in, and Kevin and John have got a wealth of experience and knowledge and contacts, and I've learned so much from them. Equally, I have done from Scarlett and Francesca, the two more junior members of the team. Now, just to give you a bit of hope, Scarlett was actually, she decided she didn't want to go to university. She wanted to pick up an apprenticeship. She actually started on work experience with us and is now our full-time apprentice. And she and Francesca are constantly like keeping me right with all of the social media side of things. So I literally, they're just as valuable. Be prepared to pitch in and do anything. Like, I mean, literally anything. I'll give you some examples. Like, do not be fooled that PR is all glamour and prosecco and parties. Parties, the good old days. Because you get the reward, you get that glass of bubbles, and it never tastes so good after you've worked at an event. But there's a lot of hard graft, physically and mentally. Like, it's I've done everything from working until 2-3 in the morning at an event, preparing clothes at Next for a fashion show. I have done more Starbucks runs in London for the team when we're doing events down at Next than you can ever imagine. I have, and I kid you not here, I'm not making this up, I have been sent out to a Tesco to get vegetables for Alicia Dixon to steam. And I remember being enraged that she didn't even eat them. And then I've even ordered hair extensions for Jerry Halliwell from the Spice Girls. So, because she did a swimwear collection for Next. So when she was at an event, that was one of my tasks. I've looked after a roadshow full of people, models, dancers, photographers, videographers. I've had to keep them all in check. I had to organise all their travel. And believe me, the glamorous side of it is lovely, but you're usually so exhausted after the prep that you're kind of at the point where you're like, I just want to go to bed now. But I would also say, do never underestimate the power of making a good cup of tea or coffee, and pitch in regardless of how successful you get. What position you are, whether you are a junior press officer or you are an account director. I've always made it my point to get involved, tidy up after yourself, like to help pitch in, pack boxes. I can't tell you how many goodie bags I've packed. Make it fun, smile, just try and bring a bit of joy to it, because I think so many people are so used to coming in and just wanting to get stuff done. But if you can bring a little bit of light to it and bring your personality out and just be friendly, have a can-do attitude, say yes to things, you never know where they might lead. I've pitched in at all sorts of different stuff because I've just been like, well, you need help, so yeah, I'll help you, and it's been nice to be able to pay that back when the likes of Scarlett and Francesca have asked me for advice, or equally they give me advice. Scarlett in particular is a very old head on young shoulders. She's like one of the wisest people I know, but it's never feel like you've learned everything, because you never will. There's always room for more. I think that there's definite skills that you need to be a PR, but there's a lot of personality based and grafting and just kind of having that can-do attitude, I think is really important. Yeah, I hope. Sorry, I've waffled on a bit, haven't I? Sorry.
No, that was great. We've got a couple minutes left, and then we can go into some questions.
Yeah.
So I think I'll ask you mainly just, what do you like about working in PR and local journalism?
biggest thing for me is literally every day is different. There are no days the same, whether that was agency or in-house. I've had some, like I've touched upon there, some amazing experiences. I realise how lucky I am, but also I've worked really hard, and like I was saying before, those skills and that can-do attitude and you know that graft, it does get you places, you know, and I still get that real buzz when I get coverage, you know, that excitement. And we've got a work WhatsApp group, and everyone's so sort of supportive of each other, and when something good happens, we'll message each other on that, which I think certainly at the moment where things have been tough for a lot of people, we send funny gifts and memes and all that sort of stuff, and I think the day that I lose that buzz is probably the day that I know that it's maybe time to make a change. But like I say, I'm 13 years in and I still get that excitement of seeing piece of client coverage. So yeah, I think they're the main things in dealing. We've got some amazing clients. I've had some amazing experiences in my previous roles, but some of our clients that we've got now are wonderful, and I'm learning a lot from them as well. You know, there's some real powerhouse women as well, and we're very inclusive environment. We talk about anything and everything, and we try and sort of have that relationship with our clients as well, where we're very open and honest, and you know, certainly again, without wanting to dwell too much on the current circumstances, you know, when lockdown first happened, we set up weekly Zoom calls with our clients, and they are still going. You know, we're still having that check-in, even if there isn't necessarily a lot of work-related things to discuss. We will still have 10 minutes to chat and make sure that they're all right. And the feedback that we've had from that has been really wonderful. And we as a team have a call every morning at 9:30 without fail. Videos on so that we can see and make sure that we're all okay. Yeah, I working with the people that I work with helps massively make the job so much more enjoyable, but I really enjoy the job as well. Yeah, I hope you can hear that in my voice. It's like there's a real joy in what I do, and it's exciting and it's different. Don't get me wrong, there's days where I'm battling with various things and things aren't going right, as we all have, but then there's that call or email that you've got that piece of coverage, or a client messages to say they're happy with something, or Kevin or John message to say well done on something. You know, I feel very lucky.
Yeah, I can definitely tell you're passionate. And I think that's one of the most important things when doing a job like this one, that so many things can go wrong, like you said, and there's things that do take a lot of work, but at the end of the day, it all kind of feels rewarding because you're doing something that you love.
Yeah.
So thanks for that. That's really heartwarming to hear. I think I'll open up for questions now, and then if no one has anything to ask, then I'll go on to my next ones. But I want to see if anyone has anything to ask. Rebecca, you can raise your hand. Oh, there's a question in the chat. How easy is it to transfer from departments, example from fashion into sports media?
I can't give you a prime example of that because I've not really because obviously worked at Next to start with, and I think there was elements of that job that perhaps I could have picked out for example for sports, because obviously I had that the time with the Olympics and things. I think when you've got the skills from a PR perspective of writing, if you've got the contacts as well, contacts is one thing I meant to mention before. When you're building your contacts, when you get those contacts that you build relationships with, hang on to them for dear life. You know, there's always a lot of changes, but if you get a decent contact, you can also then ask them who's the best person to speak to in that department, or who covers sport, or who covers fashion, or I think as well, when you're working on your CV, or if you've got a particular passion for something, it will come through. Like I say, I hope you've seen the passion that I have for my job. But certainly the when I started and wanted to work for Next and really wanted to get into fashion side of things, that hard work I put into showing something different for the interview and the presentation helped. I think do as much as you can outside of your job as well, or if you're doing work experience, if you can. I know that it must be really tough at the moment, being in the position you guys are in, because not only are you having to remote learn, but you're not able to necessarily go. Oh, sorry, I think we've got another question there as well. Not necessarily able to go and do work experience, but right, you know, one of the first things that people will look at now, and I know that Kevin and John do, is if someone applies for work experience, or they send a CV in, not only will they read the CV, but they will go on their LinkedIn profile, they'll look at their social media channels, they'll see if they do any writing from a blog perspective. If you're really passionate about getting into something, showcase that passion in a different way. You might not be able to get that route that you want straight away, but there's always angles that you can explore, and I will, if anyone wants my email address or anything like that, then let the team know, and I'm happy for that to be passed on. I've had some very lovely mentors in my life and career, so if anyone wants to ask any questions or talk to me about anything, then I'm not the oracle by any means. I don't want that to sound like I am the all-knowing woman, but I can offer advice and help, and I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. I'm sure they'll appreciate that. Yeah, so if anyone wants, just message in the chat, or you can tweet me or anything, and we'll send you the information. There's another question. I'm also just completing an English and creative writing degree, though not with PR and journalism modules, but definitely want to work in PR. How do you go about getting in to the industry from square one with minimal experience?
I think everyone's got to start somewhere, and I think it's finding that path and talking to people. And I mean, I was incredibly lucky. One of my my manager at Next, it was actually her partner that she came home and she talked about the people that she'd interviewed, including me. And her partner basically said to her, someone gave you a chance once, it's time for you to repay that favor. It's time for you to give someone that chance. I think practice your skills. There's lots of different things that you can look at from a press release writing experience. It's really hard, sorry, because it's been a while since I started from square one, so to speak, and because my sort of journey went from journalism to PR, it kind of it's usually the other way. It's getting that. Sorry, I'm stuttering over my words here, aren't I? And I'm wanting to give you advice about work experience, but that's not possible at the moment because there's so many places that aren't able to offer it because they're not physically in the offices. Research the PR agencies in the area. You know, if you're in the Midlands, there's us, but there's quite a few other small ones as well. See if there's any opportunities for freelance work, or for work for free, or for guest spots, or even just asking questions. Build up that, you know, look at contacts in the area, look at building a database or a network of people. Join networks. There's networking groups that you can look at. I wish I was able to say you can all have a job, because I know how hard it is when it's a chicken and egg situation. It's like when you have your very first job, you need experience, but you can't get experience until someone offers you that role. I'm really sorry. I hope that's kind of given you a little bit of an insight, but I don't feel like I've been very helpful.
No, I think it made sense, but like you said, I think work experience would sort of be the bigger thing, but at the moment it's not very possible. They said definitely it's optimistic. So.
I think I'm make a portfolio stand out. I can only see the bottom part of that. Could you read me the? Sorry.
Yeah, I'll read it. Yeah. Is there anything in particular that can make a portfolio stand out? I've had a lot of occasions where I send off some examples of my work and I don't know if they've made an impression, the impression I'm aiming for.
Is that from a PR or a journalism perspective? I'm so sorry, I didn't get who asked that question. Ella. Oh, sorry. Oh, do you know what? This is going to show how much of a nana I am. I've just realised when you click on the chat, you can open the whole thing. Sorry. I can see it now. Journalism. I don't know is the honest answer to that. I'm really sorry because it's been such a long time since I was looking at the journalism side of things. Again, just keep writing. Ask, look at the local publications, look at the likes of 69 and Deluxe magazine. There's plenty of other magazines and publications like that throughout the region. See what they're looking for, see what they're planning. I know that, again, a lot are in our situation where we're not actually able to physically publish the magazines, but we're still doing a lot of online content. The hardest thing I find at the moment, and it's got worse as the years have gone on, is that people just don't make the time to get back to people who've applied for jobs, and I find that really heartbreaking. There's been times back in the day when I've applied for stuff and I've just been sort of brushed off, and there was a couple of times where I've been and done a heck of a lot of preparation for an interview. I've done presentations, I've written press releases, I've given examples. And it's been like getting blood from a stone to get feedback. So I wish I could be a bit more positive on that side of things, in the sense that it's a rare beast nowadays where someone actually takes the time to get back to you. And I know you guys must be really feeling that frustration, especially at the moment. But just push for feedback as well. If you have sent your portfolio off and they've not, or they've asked, especially if they've specifically asked for it, don't be afraid to go back and say, look, I'd love to get some feedback. If I'm not right for this position, that's absolutely fine. But what is it about my writing that I need to work on? What else? What feedback can you give me? What can I do more of? Because people will very rarely turn that away. Everyone needs to remember that they've all started from somewhere. I think it's important to kind of be a little bit more, confident in your abilities, in the sense of, getting into the workplace and asking the questions. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Don't be afraid to ask for help. What exactly is you're doing there? And I'm sorry, I'm not as helpful as I would like to be. But I think when you've got a portfolio, that's an excellent start. If you haven't got a blog already, just write in any way that you can. That's the one thing I will say, is that then when someone does want to, you do spark someone's interest, not only have they got their portfolio, but they've seen that you've written freelance pieces for this, you've got a blog, you're promoting it on social media, the importance of getting your content out there. I think it's so easy for people to find people these days, that if you make yourself easy to find, then hopefully it means that someone will find you at a time where the stars align and you're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in that sense, you should also kind of, to make your portfolio stand out, for it to be like nicely designed, organized. If things are easier to look at, people will tend to be more drawn to it as well.
Yeah.
Like you said, like have a variety of content that you can write as well, to show that you're versatile. And I feel like, please correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're sending something to someone specifically and you know who that person is, I prefer to add them on LinkedIn or follow them on Twitter, interact with the things that they post, because especially if you have a name that's sort of a bit different, they'll remember your name. And they might even follow you back, and that could easily do nothing, but it could also have a big impact as well.
Definitely. No, that's really good advice. I think that, LinkedIn is more important than, I think, excuse me, I think people realize. It is, from a business perspective, when you're applying for jobs, that is a really good place to go. And one thing I will also say from a portfolio perspective, and again, this might just be me being a grandma, but make it as easy as possible for them to access everything. So send them an email, personalize it. Don't worry too much about niceties. Say, hi, how are you? Give them a bit of information, short and sweet, and links. links to some copy examples, this might sound like really simple, but for goodness sake, make sure that everything is absolutely bob on with your spelling and grammar, because nothing will put someone off more than, especially if you're applying for a writing position, for PR, for journalism, just in general for applying for a job. I know it sounds really obvious, and I know that there's times where you can become snowblind to it because you've read it that many times. Get someone else to read it. Get 2 people to read it. Just make sure that the spelling and grammar is spot on, and that includes in the title of the email itself. I know it sounds like really, really obvious, but I can't tell you how many times from the publishing side of the business we've had a press release that's got dreadful grammar and spelling, and it's not even been looked at past the first sentence when we've realised. So that is like sounds really obvious, but please just make sure that spelling, grammar, and that someone else reads over your work and just gives you that extra reassurance that everything is as it should be, because that's really important, especially in the field that we're in.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. We've got about 5 minutes left for a couple more questions. If anyone else has anything they want to ask, you can raise your hand or you can pop it in the chat.
Sorry, I've just got a question I'll jump in with.
Go ahead, yeah.
What's your favourite event you've ever worked on?
Oh, that's a good question. It would definitely be at Next, and I'm going to cheat and probably say more than one. I'd say probably one of the best events I've ever been to as a guest. Next used to do a charity ball every 2 years, and they would raise thousands of pounds for charity. And the one year that I got to go was with the athletes that we were working with as part of Team Next, and Gary Barlow was performing. Now, sorry, again, I'm going to show my age, but I was a massive Take That fan, still am. So that for me was just amazing. And watching these honed Olympic athletes getting absolutely trolleyed, one of which was an Olympic rower who I had to fish out of the fountain at one point. It was just brilliant. It was an absolutely amazing night. One of those nights where you will never ever forget. Events wise that I've worked on, actually one of the ones that I'm really proud of and is more recent is so the charity organisation that we work for is Voluntary Action Leicestershire, and they had a vision as a client that our main contact really wanted to create an awards ceremony to celebrate the sector, and we helped them bring it to life. So standing there on the night of that award ceremony, seeing how proud they were, how we'd been able to help and support them, and seeing the team and seeing all that come together from all their hard work and the celebration of people who really truly deserved it, that was a really proud moment for me as well. But yeah, there's so many at Next that were just amazing. There was an event when we went out to Australia that was just fantastic as well. I've been so lucky. But yeah, the charity ball was a definite highlight, and then event that we helped to organise was the Voluntary Action Leicester Awards, and that was just a really proud moment for them as well on their behalf, for all their hard work and the recognition of the sector. It's a good question. I'll probably think of 5 more now that I'll be like, oh, on this one.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have about 3 minutes left. Do you
Okay.
have? There's another question in the chat, but if anyone else has any more questions, I'm sure Rebecca will be fine with you emailing them, or we can pass it over. So the question is, how much crossover between PR and marketing is there? So how much kind of creative strategy campaign type stuff is PR typically responsible for?
Not masses, if I'm perfectly honest. Marketing, the simplest way that I sort of separate marketing and PR is marketing tends to be more paid for. So that tends to be customer emails. It tends to be your social media marketing, so your promoted posts, that sort of thing. when we're looking at a wider strategy with a client, we will always take into account what marketing they're doing alongside the PR, and to make sure that their strategies are both aligned. But for us, it is predominantly the bread and butter PR side of things. So it's press releases, it's building awareness, it's introductions, it's kind of, we do support from a social media perspective with some of our clients, but it's more the creative side of things. We do advise on the paid for posts and how that all works. But from it, there tends to be a separation, especially in bigger businesses. Like Next had an entire marketing team, and then the PR were very separate. But there were certain alignments and crossovers when we were looking at bigger campaigns. So yeah, sorry, that's a very quick answer to that question because I'm conscious of time. But yeah, there are definite strategies from PR because we've got to have strategies. But it's a different, they're kind of crossover, but also different. So that's not a good way of explaining it, but you can. I've been talking a long time. I can.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, they said no. That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Well, so we're kind of like finishing now. As I said, if you have any questions, just you can DM me for Rebecca's email or the SPA Twitter account or anything like that. And we'll send you over the information. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for speaking today. I really appreciate you coming, and I hope you had a good time.
I have really enjoyed it, and thanks for listening, guys. And I hope I haven't bored you too much.
No, it was very interesting, and I really enjoyed seeing your passion for your job, and hopefully that has inspired people into looking into, PR and local journalism as well. So thank you all so much for coming. I'll see you in the next session, and have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Very much
for the rest of the sessions. Thank you. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Rebecca. Have a good day.
You too, darling. Bye-bye.
Thank you.